What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott here from Swordsman, bringing you our latest Skyrim build, the Insane Swordsman, and some news regarding the future of Skyrim builds on our channel. As many of you may know, we've been making Skyrim builds for basically 3 years now, and unfortunately it's coming to a time where Skyrim builds are going to have to wrap up so we can focus on moving on to bigger and better things. As expected, after more than 100 Skyrim builds, we are running short on cool ideas, and we want to wrap the series up as an amazing journey to be on display forever, a sensational showcase of the best Skyrim builds to ever grace YouTube. To keep it short and sweet, we're going to be doing a few more Skyrim builds, perhaps 5 or 6, and then we're going to focus more on other things. We're thinking of having spontaneous Let's Play adventures on the channel in which games like Skyrim and even Oblivion can be played. Also, do keep in mind we are going to be all over Elder Scrolls 6 like glue if it's ever announced. We'll be doing heaps of Elder Scrolls 6 builds, and if you ever want to come and discuss Elder Scrolls questions with us, then you can head over to our Elder Scrolls community that we've just created on Imzy. Imzy is basically an awesome Reddit-like site that is in an exclusive beta process. However, we've managed to score ourselves some more invites that we're opening up to you guys. So be sure to check that out if you're interested so you can talk to us and each other. I want to thank everyone who has supported our Skyrim builds over the last 3 years, and I look forward to you joining us on our adventure to grow Fudge Muppet larger than anyone ever thought was possible. Moving on to the build, the Insane Swordsman has a lot to do with the Shivering Isles, my favorite DLC of all time, and he's going to be the kind of guy who runs into battle screaming in his insanity, paralyzing his enemies, shouting them off cliffs, and slashing them into tiny chunks using a deadly oversized blade. This orc happens to love the colors of Christmas, red and green, and this will be represented in his clothing and jewelry. When it comes to mods, this build won't be too crazy, but be sure to go beyond what we recommend if you want to. Firstly, we've got the alternate start mod, which allows you to choose the I want to escape from this cell option when you begin the game, and this will fit with the backstory that we've designed. Secondly, we're going to be using the Lore Weapon expansion mod, which will give you access to a whole range of cool weapons from previous Elder Scrolls games. You can use these as you level up, but eventually we'll be using this for the Daedric Katana. These mods will be linked in the description, but obviously, as you can assume, this build is definitely possible to create for players who only have the vanilla game. We'll be showcasing vanilla alteration spells in the video, but definitely go nuts on the magic mods that have cool alteration spells as well. Get things like the Apocalypse and Midas magic mods to use all the insane maniac spells that you desire. As you would have noticed, this build is an orc, and we mainly chose this for the aesthetic and the cool backstory. Being an orc, you will get some bonuses that benefit the skill set we're going to use, notably +5 to one-handed smithing and enchanting, and you'll also get the incredibly beast racial power known as Berserker Rage. This allows for the Insane Swordsman to take half damage from enemies and deal twice as much damage for 60 seconds once per day. This is one of the best racial powers in Skyrim, and it's something that will remain helpful for your entire playthrough. In regards to stat spread, we're actually going with 50% health, 30% magicka, and 20% stamina. The stamina is obviously for using a lot of sprinting power attacks and standard power attacks with your giant blade, and will definitely help this build shred his enemies apart with more ease. Having 30% magicka will be for all the alteration spells being used, like Paralyze and Ebony Flesh, and 50% is what remains to make sure that you don't become remains. In combat, of course. While his armor rating isn't really high, this build will survive with his Ebony Flesh protection and also avoiding damage by immobilizing his foes with magic. He will also be using dragon shouts all the time, especially Unrelenting Force, so you can force rodar your opponents to the ground, making them unable to hurt you. Also, any magicka and health issues can be countered by our enchantments. The Atronach Stone will be the standing stone that the Insane Swordsman is best suited for, and this has a few effects on the build. Firstly, it reduces magicka regen by 50%, which again can be countered by enchanting, and then it adds +50 to your magical pool. And finally, it gives the Insane Swordsman 50% spell absorption. This will give you a 50% chance to absorb any spell that hits you, take no damage from it, and absorb its magicka for your own use. This is ridiculously powerful against enemy mages, especially because they can use wards to block your spells, which are your only ranged attacks. Born in New Sheoth within the Shivering Isles, the Insane Swordsman was the great-great-grandson of Dumag Grobonk, a famous blacksmith of Amber. This bloodline had passed down the skill of blacksmithing with their specialization of amber crafting for many generations. Unfortunately for the Insane Swordsman, his father had died when he was young, and thus he was never taught how to craft amber. He read all the books he could from the family shop located in Bliss, and taught himself to be good enough at smithing to make other great weapons. However, he could never get the hang of amber. No matter what he tried, he simply didn't have the talent. And like the other citizens of Sheogorath's realm, realm, the insane swordsman eventually became, well, insane. The orc actually preferred the art of magic and loved to practice alteration magic in his shop. He was a famous shopkeeper that had always had customers, however it was for reasons other than his weapon and armor quality. The insane swordsman's shop was highly fascinating. It was filled with living beings, all paralyzed. He had multiple creatures that were captured and paralyzed as decorations, and more entertaining than that, he had thieves on display too. Anyone that tried to steal from his shop was paralyzed and left immobilized permanently in stasis. He would dress them up in his armor and funny outfits, ensuring they were left in funny positions for people to laugh at. These living mannequins got the insane swordsman a lot of attention, and it wasn't long before the Prince of Madness himself took notice. He admired what the orc was doing and made an order that would change the crazy shopkeeper's life forever. Sheogorath demanded a crown made purely from amber, and specifically requested that the crown was the most beautiful and shiny relic that anyone had ever seen. The insane swordsman knew that he couldn't craft this, but he also knew that if he didn't do it, he'd be executed, or much, much worse. The orc attempted to craft amber once again, and once again he failed miserably. He concluded that he wouldn't be able to learn fast enough, and then he made the decision to attempt to fool the mad god. Over the span of a week, the insane swordsman used his crafting knowledge and alteration magic to craft a glass crown that truly looked like amber down to the very last detail. Upon giving the crown to Sheogorath, it was thrown on the floor, and Sheogorath ordered Haskell to remove this peon from my realm. The crazy orc was banished into this weird cell that had a Mara statue in it, and this is where your game will begin. The orc will tell the statue that he wants to escape, and he's not sure whether or not what he's experiencing is even real or just a hallucination created for him. However, once the insane swordsman does escape and he finds himself on Skyrim on a dangerous quest to get back to his home, he's an absolute lunatic, and he decides he will become a famed swordsman in order to gain influence and thus learn from people how he could get back to the Shivering Isles. The orc is very unpredictable, so any motives you choose don't have to make sense. That said, your one goal will be to find a way back home. The insane swordsman will also strive to get good at alteration magic simply because he likes it, and he'll also aim to get the citizens of Skyrim to appreciate his smithing. The expectations for blacksmiths in the mortal world are a lot lower, and sadly the insane swordsman is quite simply mindless to everyone else, and people tend to avoid him if they can. He will join the College of Winterhold in hope of finding a way back to the Shivering Isles, and this is where he learns alteration. He will even head to Solstheim in search of knowledge from Hermaeus Mora. However, again, he will fail. He can also join the Companions if you like, however, if you choose, you should cure your werewolf ability so you don't owe yourself to Hircine. The same thing goes for the Dawnguard DLC. We recommend joining the Dawnguard, although if you want to join Volkihar, it is a possibility. We just think that the orc would want to avoid becoming enslaved by Molag Bal. However, never forget that this build is loony and all things he does aren't necessarily rational. If you want to join the vampires, go for it. He may have sounded slightly mellow when I talked about him in the context of the Shivering Isles, but by Tamrielic standards, he's completely mental. This build yells and cries out randomly at times, and after finding out that he is Dragonborn and harnessing his power, this becomes hilarious and effective. He will run around screaming incomprehensibly at his foes, smashing them into walls and breaking their bones. He will finish them off with the giant sword that he will eventually learn to craft, and he chooses to use this sword because it's extremely big and has a lot of length, and he also chooses to carry it in one hand to show off his strength and feel superior to others. This build will try to gain as much power as possible so that he can get back to the Shivering Isles, so he can impress Sheogorath, who he believes to be always watching. Later on, this build will also do Sheogorath's quest, and to his fright, he will discover that his former ruler has no recollection of who he is, and doesn't even take him back to his homeland. This will drive the orc to be more of a maniac than ever. However, he doesn't throw away the possibility of Sheogorath playing a trick on him, and because of this, he still continues to gain power in an effort to return to his previous realm. The skills being used by the insane swordsman are enchanting, smithing, alteration, and one-handed. One-handed has officially been chosen so we can master the colossal knife we're holding, and alteration has been chosen so we can use flesh spells for protection and paralyze spells for battlefield control. You can also use the utility spells like detect life and obviously anything you want from the magic mods we recommended. Enchanting will will help us with all the additional bonuses we're going to put all over our gear, and smithing will be used to craft our jewelry and sharpen our pointy sword. As always, the perk link will be in the description. In terms of playstyle, don't forget to use Dragon Shout all the time. You could use things like Throw Voice just for fun, or even decide to summon a dragon in the battlefield. Perhaps you feel like turning someone into ice just for fun, or summoning a lightning storm on a nearby town. That said, your main shout will be Fusradar, as we wanted this character to run around shouting manically with his yells having tangible force behind them. Your playstyle will consist of quickly casting Ebony Flesh before casting Paralyze on targets that need to be controlled, and then you can rush your opponents with your sword and focus efforts on enemies who are not immobilized. One of our favorite things to do is paralyze enemies and then shout them off a cliff. The Insane Swordsman will be dressed in this greeny variant of fine clothes, and he'll be wearing fine boots as well. Alongside this, he'll be wearing a necklace, a circlet, and a ring. Remember, this character loves green and red, so pick emerald and ruby accordingly. You can smith your own jewelry, and your choice of gold or silver is up to you. We think gold is best. His crazy shop owner aesthetic is completed by the addition of his Daedric katana, which you'll want to smith yourself. Upgrade this with your smithing skill as well to cause more damage. This sword will be enchanted with Paralyze, and the perks we've chosen you'll actually get 2 effects. We recommend that the second effect be Soul Trap, as you'll be able to acquire the Black Star from the Azura quest and then use it in combination to keep your sword charged. That said, if your sword does run out of charge, don't worry too much. It doesn't desperately need charging. You can also buy soul gems if you have to. In regards to all your clothing and all your jewelry, you'll want to use enchantments such as Fortify Alteration and Fortify One-Handed. You can also use enchantments that make you resist magic, increase health, or increase magicka. We suggest picking enchantments that suit how you're finding your playthrough. Perhaps you like to use magic more often and you want more magicka, or maybe your Insane Swordsman just can't stop power attacking. Also, because this build is completely unpredictable, you can use whatever companions you want. You can be very crazy and keep to yourself, or you can purchase the service of random mercenaries for an extra hand, or for an unexpected murder in the wilderness. The choice is yours. And that wraps up our latest Skyrim build, the Insane Swordsman. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more Elder Scrolls goodness. Perhaps we'll be doing some Let's Play videos sometime soon. I hope you enjoyed watching this build, and remember to head over to Imsy to talk about Elder Scrolls. My name is Scott, this was the Insane Swordsman, and I'll see you next time.